Howdy folks, and welcome back to War Thunder Realistic Battle with the mighty Jingles. You may, by the way, be able to hear the air conditioning in the background. I refuse to turn it off. It has reached the dizzying heights of 21 degrees here in the southern coast of England, and I cannot take the heat. Rita keeps suggesting we go to all these hot places for holidays, and I swear she's trying to kill me. I often sit and wonder how the hell the British managed to conquer an empire that covered a quarter of the globe. Bear in mind some of these places that Britain conquered, places like India, Burma, Malaya, Honduras, the Mosquito Coast, Florida, the Bahamas, Bermuda, South Africa, Swaziland, Australia, New Guinea, Borneo, Afghanistan, Iraq, Egypt, the Sudan, Kenya, Zanzibar, Tanganyika, Mauritius. All of these places have something in common. They're bloody hot. How did the British Army and Navy stand it? I mean, that's what I want to know, genuinely. I can barely manage to sit down in this kind of temperature, and they somehow managed to fight and conquer a quarter of the globe in double of these temperatures. They were obviously made of sterner stuff back then. So, yes, anyway, the air conditioning's on and it's staying on. What's that? Oh, the game, yes. Sorry, got sidetracked there. This is Ogurr, he's in the P40E. But this is a special camouflage for the P40E, and I have to admit, to my eternal shame, I must apologise, New Zealand, I had no idea which nation those roundels belonged to. It took some digging to find out that those were actually the aircraft roundels of the Royal New Zealand Air Force during World War II. Or at least the ones that they used in the Pacific Theatre. You see, I'm used to looking for a sort of Royal Air Force type roundel, except the red kiwi in the middle, and that was the Royal New Zealand Air Force. The same way that the South African Air Force used a Royal Air Force roundel with a Springbok, and the Australians used a Royal Air Force roundel with a kangaroo in it. But in the Pacific Theatre, they didn't like having red circles on Allied aircraft because people tended to shoot at them thinking they were Japanese, so all of the Allied nations dropped any red circles from their aircraft roundels. Hence you see this different version of the Royal New Zealand Air Force roundel, and the Australians, South Africans and the British did the same. But that's not all that's special about this particular aircraft. This is one of the camouflage patterns that you can unlock for your P40 in War Thunder. It's not a customised skin or anything, it's actually there available in the game. You can either earn it or you can unlock it with some golden eagles. And it's called the Gloria Lions. Now it's not the lions as in the big cat that prowls the savannas of Africa and hunts wildebeest. Lions as in, well, spelt more like the French town of Lyon, for example. And Gloria Lions was a tuberculosis patient at Christchurch Hospital in New Zealand during World War II. And she was pen pal with a pair of armourers who worked at the Royal New Zealand Air Force's No. 4 Servicing Unit at Ondonga on the island of New Georgia in the Solomons. As a result of the correspondence between Gloria and the two armourers, the No. 4 Servicing Unit decided to adopt her as a mascot. And so one of the unit's P40s, which had the serial number NZ3148, code G, was christened the Gloria Lions, and this name was painted on the lower engine cowls. After this aircraft was written off due to a crash landing on the 9th of February 1944, another candidate was found, again a P40, this time with serial number NZ3167. It was a P40N5, and this also had the name Gloria Lions painted onto the engine cowling. This aircraft was also written off 2 weeks later, after being hit by enemy ground fire while on a strafing mission. The pilot, who was coincidentally involved in the loss of the first Gloria Lions, was forced to bail out into the sea. And so a third P40, this time serial number NZ3220, was selected as the next candidate and was duly marked up with Gloria's name. This third and final Gloria Lions P40 actually managed to survive the war and is now privately owned and stored at Mapua, near Nelson in New Zealand. The cumulative scores and missions of all three Gloria Lions P40s were painted onto the cowl of the final aircraft when it returned to New Zealand in late 1944. Oh wow, just look at that spin. Go on, see if you can ninja an assist. Right. Where were we? Oh yes. Actually, we're going to come back to the Gloria Lions itself in a moment, because it looks like Ogurr has found himself some trouble. That is a lot of enemy aircraft. They're mostly all C-202s or C-200s. He does not have an awful lot of support and backup here. That is a metric arse-ton of enemy fighter aircraft, and they all have the altitude advantage over him. So he has very wisely decided that that's not the kind of fight he wants to be getting into. Okay, back to the history lesson. So, the cumulative scores and missions of the 3 Gloria Lions P-40s were painted on the cowl of the surviving model. When it returned to New Zealand in 1944, it was repainted in the foliage green sky grey scheme, but the markings were retained. These were 55 yellow bomb symbols representing strike missions and 2.5 Japanese flags representing victories over enemy aircraft. I can't help but think, though, that it does seem like a strange choice for a P-40 skin, given that there are so many notable P-40 pilots. Clive Caldwell, Royal Australian Air Force, highest scoring P-40 pilot from any Air Force with 22 kills, highest scoring Allied pilot in North Africa. John Gorton, Royal Australian Air Force, the Prime Minister of Australia, who flew P-40s with number 77 Squadron in New Guinea. Kenneth Taylor and George Welch, the only 2 US Army Air Force pilots to actually manage to get their aircraft in the air during the attack on Pearl Harbor. They both flew P-40s, and between the 2 of them shot down 3 Japanese aircraft that day, although Kenneth Taylor was wounded in the arm after claiming 2 kills. Bruce Holloway, top scoring American P-40 pilot with 13 kills, along with John F. Hampshire, and later a US Air Force 4-star general and the commander of the Strategic Air Command. Oh, hang on a second. Oh, I've got a bit too close for comfort. You're going to be seeing a lot of this sort of thing in this replay, by the way, because this replay is pretty much all about Ogurr constantly outnumbered and out of position against multiple enemy aircraft, like, for example, that BF-109, and he's just about to stall this thing. Thought he was going to do a hammerhead, but no, he's pulling the nose over and looping back down. BF-109 way above him. But yes, today's video is all about the art of defensive flying, something that Ogurr seems to be very, very good at. BF-109 in the dive and attack again. This guy constantly has the energy advantage over Ogurr. So Ogurr puts it into a corkscrew again, keeps an eye on his opponent. And the BF-109 is playing it smart. Very smart. He would easily, because he did overshoot Ogurr the first time, which is exactly what Ogurr wanted him to do, to get the BF-109 in front of his guns, but he didn't fall for that trick twice. Instead, he's maintaining the altitude advantage, so he can pick and choose when he wants to attack. And now there's a pair of C-202s closing in, although one of them doesn't appear to know. He went and dragged left, the other, another 2 of them, oh lordy, 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 there's 3 on 1 here. At least 3 on 1, possibly 4 on 1. It's moving too quickly for me to keep track. Now, what Ogurr definitely does not want to be doing here, especially with multiple enemy aircraft above him, is engaging in a turning, burning dogfight with the ones at the same altitude as him, because that's going to leave him low on energy, low on speed, and even if the guys at his altitude level don't take him out, and they probably will because there's more than one of them, there are vultures circling at higher altitude that he's just going to set himself up as an easy target for a diving kill. So instead, he's getting low down on the ground and going after this HS-129. All those guys circling overhead, you can come after me if you want, but you're going to have to throw away all of your altitude in order to do it. And it doesn't look like anybody's taken the bait. Which means that he's actually, well, I wouldn't go so far as to call it a fair fight. It is a HS-219 after all. It's not a particularly good ground attack aircraft, and it's a terrible fighter. But this is just about the only one-on-one fight that Ogurr is going to get into in this entire battle. Oh, somebody else is going for him. I don't know if that's ground fire or another friendly aircraft coming in, but Ogur's the one scoring the hits. I think it might be ground fire from some of the vehicles. More hits, 50 cals rattling away, he's got him. So there's his first confirmed shoot down, and he already has 1 assist to his name. Now, did anybody come down here after him? Don't think they did. Oh, no, actually, it's our friend in the BF-109 again. He is nothing if not persistent. He saw that Ogurr had seen him, and he did not commit himself to a head-on pass. Instead, he's again doing the smart thing, and he's maintaining that energy advantage by staying at altitude. Right, Ogurr has expended a fair amount of ammunition so far. Now that's one of the advantages of taking an aircraft like the P-40 into a realistic battle, where you don't have unlimited ammunition, because it's only armed with, well, say only, it does have 6 50 caliber machine guns, but it doesn't have any cannons. And cannon ammunition can be at a bit of a premium in realistic battles, whereas you can carry a lot more 50 caliber ammunition. BF-109 slotted in on his tail, and the BF-109 is a faster aircraft than the P-40, but at this kind of altitude it's not that much faster. See, that was one of the disadvantages of the P-40. It didn't have a 2-stage supercharger, which meant that it was at a distinct disadvantage against the BF-109 and the Focke-Wulf 190 at high altitude. And so the P-40 was very rarely deployed in northwestern Europe, but it did see very extensive service in China, the South Pacific, and North Africa, where most of the air combat was at medium or low altitude. And it wasn't a bad fighter under those circumstances. P-40s did suffer a lot of losses, but they caused a lot of damage and scored a lot of kills at the same time. And they were also incredibly cheap, which meant that even after they were long obsolete as fighter aircraft, they still saw lots of service as close air support ground attack aircraft. Now, pay attention to the team lists, because at this precise moment there are now only 2 pilots left flying on Ogurr's team against 6 enemies, and one of the pilots is in a Wellington, so he's not going to be much use in a dogfight. And it's at more or less this moment when the BF-109, who I believe might be, judging by his name, a Turkish pilot, has decided that Ogurr is close enough that he can start trying his luck with his machine guns, and so of course Ogurr is forced to start flying defensively, and he's no longer flying in a straight line, and he's losing airspeed when he's pulling these manoeuvres, which allows the BF-109 to get close enough that he figures it's time he can start using the cannons. So now Ogurr is forced to once again go defensive. Now he's pulling a scissors here, attempting by dropping his flaps to give himself increased lift while lowering his throttle and attempting to get his BF-109 to overshoot. But the BF-109 is wise to these tricks. He's doing pretty much exactly the same. He's managing his own airspeed, he's nursing the flaps there, and he's just not doing what Ogurr wants him to do. However, while Ogurr didn't make it all the way back to the airstrip, he is in range of the anti-aircraft guns, and you know how dangerous airfield anti-aircraft fire can be. And the BF-109 pilot knows exactly how dangerous airfield anti-aircraft fire can be, and he's decided he's pushed his luck quite far enough for one day, and he's broken off. And, well, why take the risk? There's 6 of you, and there are only 2 pilots left on the enemy team, and one of those is in a Wellington. So why push your luck? Why take the risk of getting hit and shot down by anti-aircraft fire when all you have to do is wait? So that was one very, very skilled, very, very patient BF-109 player. I was expecting great things from that BF-109 player. He's not really put a foot wrong so far every time we've seen him in this game. Multiple different diving attacks on Ogurr from high altitude, never once took the bait and attempted to get into a turning and burning dogfight with him. He didn't pursue him over the anti-aircraft guns on the airfield. Each and every time we've seen that guy so far, he has done the smart thing, which is what makes it very surprising to find that he's just crashed his aircraft. It's down there in the combat messages. I don't know, maybe he'd taken more damage from the anti-aircraft fire around the airfield than we realised, but he's out of the game. And he was not a bad player. So, it's now 2 against 5. Although to all intents and purposes it's 1 against 5, because let's face it, Ogurr's only surviving teammate is in a Wellington bomber. So, repaired, rearmed, Ogurr hauls this lumbering old crate back into the air once again. Now where the hell did that Wellington go? Because when you're outnumbered, as you are outnumbered 5-2, it's generally a good idea to stick together, but the Wellington wasted no time getting into the air while Ogurr was busy landing for repairs, and Ogurr's heading to the assistance of the Wellington as quickly as he possibly can, but the guy's just too far away. Now, it may of course be the case that Ogurr wants to get over there and help the Wellington out because he's just a good guy. It might be, but it's more likely that Ogurr wants to get over there so he can put some bullets in at the back of one of these C202s and C200s while they're tiring themselves out kicking that Wellington to death. But he was just too far away, and so rather than to all intents and purposes being the last player left alive on his team, now he is in fact the last player left alive on his team against 5 enemies. And it's not just that he's alone against 5 enemies, he's alone against 5 enemies, all of whom appear to be at a higher altitude than him and flying around in pairs, with one notable exception, and that would be that guy. Now, given that at least half of the enemy team are all within striking distance, the fact that he does have the altitude advantage over that one enemy aircraft isn't much of an advantage, but against these kind of odds, we're going to take it. It's going to have to be a head-on pass, but beggars can't be choosers. Nope. And crap, where did he go? Oh, there he is. I think that this guy is trying to pull exactly the same stunt on Ogurr as Ogurr was pulling against the BF-109 earlier. Well, that might have worked against somebody else, but as we have already established at this point, Ogur's been there, seen that, done it, and got the t-shirt. Ogur's stuck to this guy's arse like 2-week-old underwear. But he's got to finish him quick because he has 2 teammates closing in. There, he's down. Now, speaking of teammates, where are they? They can't be that far away. Oh, here they come. Now, when I saw what these 2 guys were doing, I thought, oh yeah, very smart. One of them's coming down in the dive and the other one's staying at altitude. Now, that does mean that the guy who's coming down in the dive is going to overshoot because Ogur's doing it again. That guy's built up a lot of speed in the dive and he can't lose airspeed as quickly as he built it up, which meant that, once again, he's in front of Ogur's guns, and Ogur's got him. And there's a 3rd enemy aircraft closing in, but what happened to the other guy? What happened to the 2nd guy who was staying at altitude? Because don't forget, while Ogur's doing all these low-speed manoeuvres, he's a sitting duck. But the other guy never pressed the attack. There he is. He just loitered around at high altitude. And now he's coming in for a diving attack, but Ogurr saw him coming, so once again he turns inside the dive, and with the speed that that guy's built up, in order to stay pointing at Ogurr, he's going to have to put that aircraft through some radical manoeuvres. And the airframe of the aircraft just couldn't take the strain, and Ogurr forced him to crash. So now it's gone from being 1 against 5 to 1 against 2. He just won a 1v3 defensive air combat fight against 3 opponents, all of whom started the fight at superior altitude and had the energy advantage over him. Now, Ogurr didn't actually take so much as a scratch. He took no damage whatsoever during that fight against 3 opponents, all of whom were superior to him. But he did expend some of his ammunition. So, once again, he's going to put the aircraft down, get the thing rearmed, and then go looking for the other 2. A short while later, this is obviously the edited highlights of the battle because the whole thing lasted 31 minutes, and I've even cut out the part where, while he was on his way to here, he got bounced by 2 AI BF-109s. The game had decided that things weren't hard enough for him. It had to throw some AI fighters in against him as well. But he's just spotted the 2 remaining player fighter aircraft. There's a C202 flown by Big Cheese over there, and then there's a guy with an unpronounceable name flying the C200 Mark 7, and they're coming right at him. At first I thought Big Cheese over there was going to engage him in a head-on pass, but, well, 650 caliber machine guns, that's a lot of nope. So instead, at the last second, he goes high and gets away with it, and Ogurr goes for the deflection shot, but it doesn't happen. Big Cheese is now leading him back towards the other surviving enemy fighter, and Ogurr is having none of that. Nope, sorry, not falling for it. Once again, he's in the defensive, this time 2v1. once again, both enemies have the speed and altitude advantage. On the other hand, once again, one of them, Big Cheese, is getting closer, while the other one, Mr. Fuzz T up there, is actually getting further away. So once he's at about 2 kilometers away from the closest enemy, Ogurr baits him into going for a diving attack. Lets him zoom on by, and goes after the tail end Charlie instead. Now this was damn close, but the 50 cal saw his wing off, and they actually passed each other close enough that Ogurr could have rolled the canopy back, reached out and high-fived that guy with a ciao bella as he went flying past. So now, it's 1 against 1. Where did Big Cheese in the C202 go? There he is. He did not make much of the speed advantage that he had over Ogurr by turning it back into altitude, did he? And yet Ogurr, I don't know, he just seems to be comfortable fighting at lower altitude than his opponent. So he willingly trades altitude for speed to once again open the range to about 2 kilometers, and then turns inside his opponent. Puts it into another head-on. Nope, nothing there. No hits scored. But, well, 50 cal machine guns, plenty of ammo. What's this guy going to do? Here he comes. Oh, took some hits. Couldn't quite turn inside him. And they're chasing each other's tails here. It's just a question of who can pull the nose around fast enough. And the C202 is a manoeuvrable aircraft. But Ogur's lowered his throttle, he's lowered his flaps, and he's bleeding off airspeed like crazy. But because he's moving slower, he's actually pulling a tighter circle than the C202. Now the risk here, of course, is that you cannot do it forever, because eventually you're going to lose so much speed that you're going to stall and you're just going to fall out of the sky. But he doesn't need to do it forever, he just needed to do it one more time to be able to get tight inside the turning radius of that C202, enough to make Big Cheese over there think there's no way he was going to win a turning battle. And instead, well, it's a little bit too late to go for the power fight, because now you've just had your engine damaged. Big Cheese is not quite out of tricks, however. He does have one very, very risky move up his sleeve. There. Did you see that? He put it into a spin, and a lesser opponent would have overshot right in front of your guns, and you could have taken him out. But Ogurr didn't fall for it, and now, of course, Big Cheese down there has played his last ace, it didn't work, and now he's vulnerable, because if you pull a move like that and your opponent does not fall for it, you're low on speed, you're low on altitude, and you're dead meat. 1 versus 5, 2 separate engagements, 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, all defensive engagements, all outnumbered, against superior opponents at higher altitude, and Ogurr emerged victorious. And now, of course, he's showing off like a prima donna. But I'm sure you'll agree, he's earned it. That was Ogurr and the P-40E Kitty Hawk, or Tomahawk, or Warhawk, depending where you are, who you ask, and what year it is, in War Thunder Realistic Battles. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.